The ability to control fire stands out as a distinct step in the evolution of humanity, advantageous to many aspects of survival strategies. Despite the importance of fire to modern man, the origin of its intentional use is still debated. Evidence suggests that widespread control of fire is dated to 125,000 years ago or earlier. Fire was first controlled by a Homo member 0.2 to 1.7 million years ago approximately, and possible sites for the first use of fire exist in East Africa, Israel, China, Europe, and Indonesia. Human ancestors were aware of fire before taming it themselves, as it occurs naturally via volcanic eruptions, meteorites, and lightning strikes. It is likely that fire was first cultivated through transferring forest or grass fire remains, such as hot ashes or burning wood, to a fireplace setting, then continually adding fuel. This would work well for settlements, but travel over long distances would be difficult. Fire control stemmed from this need. The first independent creation of fire was likely achieved through friction or percussion, 75,000 to 100,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence from Europe indicates that production of fire via flint and ironstone percussion was rare or virtually absent in pre-agricultural people throughout Europe. Hence, it seems likely that the first Europeans to produce fire may have utilized wood-on-wood friction techniques to start fires. This fire-starting procedure, wood-on-wood friction, likely spread rapidly worldwide, and evidence for fire production via this method appears in Australian and North American hunter-gatherer societies, as humans colonized these continents and elsewhere. This experiment involves fire creation through friction, using the hand drill method. It has been suggested that the hand drill is the oldest fire by friction method. This technique is characterized by spinning a thin, straight stick between the hands, with the base of the stick grinding within a notch on a wooden board, otherwise known as a fireboard. This repetitive spinning creates friction, and the heated wood fibers eventually create a hot, glowing coal. This is then placed onto suitable tinder and fanned until a fat flame is produced. It's a simple method, however, the pressure and speed required to create a coal difficult to maintain as only the hands are used. For this experiment, I wanted to look at the hand drill from a cognitive development viewpoint, a physical requirement viewpoint, and a creativity viewpoint. The hand drill is a simple process, however it is time-consuming and requires perseverance. It's difficult to imagine someone going through the steps without knowing the possible result, fire. Logic dictates that the very first humans to start a fire via the hand drill method certainly did not preconceive this method in its entirety with the intent of producing fire. Rather, fire must have accidentally resulted from an entirely separate operation, drilling to produce holes in objects, perhaps. I wanted to investigate the effectiveness of the hand drill when utilized by an inexperienced person, myself, to better understand what steps the first human ancestors undertook when they attempted to control fire. To create my hand drill, I gathered some strong sticks, approximately the length of my forearm. I chose the most sturdy of the lot for my spindle. I whittled either end into a round point, which you can see here, and then removed any pieces sticking out from the sides to make it easier to spin in between my palms. Here I am creating the fireboard, the baseboard on which I will rotate my spindle. While the spindle is made out of a branch I located in a nearby wooded area, I was unable to find a suitable piece of wood for the fireboard. I purchased some untreated pine planks from Bunnings, which they cut into an appropriate size for me. I carved a small V-shaped niche into the side of the board, and next to that I gouged a hole big enough for the tip of my spindle. This niche is used to easily transfer any coals that form in the spindle hole to the kindling and leaves you have waiting to light. Okay, so I put the fireboard down, I placed the spindle in the notch that I have created, and I put my hands at the top of the spindle. I rotate the spindle between my palms in a downwards motion, trying to push with pressure as well as speed. My hands travel from the top of the spindle down to the bottom, back up to the top, and so on. It's a repetitive and tedious motion. However, It needs to be continuous to achieve the results that I'm after. The powder indicates that the stick and board are wearing on each other. The spindle tip and the hole in the fireboard are both quite warm. This shows that the process is working to an extent, but it needs to be hotter to cause a cold. My hand slipped several times during the process, and the spindle itself slipped once or twice also, as seen here. It was difficult to maintain enough speed when running your hands from top to bottom and then starting from the top again. I continued this process for as long as my hands could stand, with approximately 40 minutes total dedicated to spinning the spindle, with slight breaks of a few seconds in between. Unfortunately, I was unable to produce the pressure or speed required to create any embers, and all I got was some pretty sore red raw hands. After a little more research into what I did wrong with this experiment, it became apparent that the steps that I followed from a particular website did not indicate to me to use dry wood spindle and a particularly thicker spindle. I also think that the wood I chose as my fireboard might have been an issue, as although it wasn't untreated, it had been mechanically sliced. In the modern world, fire is such a basic element that we almost never give it a second thought. We have our matches, lighters, and gas stoves within arm's reach, and we can all use them anytime we want with no worry whatsoever. As I have investigated today, creating fire was not so easy for our hominin ancestors. Neanderthals are believed to have logically identified fire, recognized its benefits, and controlled it. However, they certainly did not create it. Archaeological excavations of Neanderthal caves during extended cold periods in Europe show a virtual lack of fire use when the climate worsened and became quite frigid. Wood remains are scarce in the archaeological record due to their organic nature and tendency to rot before they are covered or fossilized, etc. There may be remnants of hand drills to locate in the archaeological record, although these would have to be in well-preserved locations, probably lucky finds, or well-researched. Archaeologists can see from my experiment that it requires a lot of strength, perseverance, and skill to create fire using the hand drill method, something that I was personally unable to provide. It would also be a driving point if one's survival depended on making the fire. Only my uni grades depend on this experiment.